welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a very fun video. I get this question a lot and I figured now is a great time to create a video about it. So basically, how do you price your KDP low content books? In short, there is no one right answer. There are multiple different strategies. There are multiple different strategies that work. So I recommend playing around with it, getting a feel for what you like, what works best for you. But in this video, I'll be outlining what I do as well as some other strategies I've heard of that I hear work well, and just a couple different options so you can figure out what you want to do for your KDP low content books, how you want to price them. First off, we are going to go over the basics, basically the technicalities of how to price your book, printing cost, royalty, all that jazz. So if you already know about all that stuff, if you already know what your cut is for your KDP books when they sell, then make sure to skip ahead. But if you're still new to the KDP game, then stick around. So beginning the whole KDP pricing adventure, the first thing you're going to want to do is after you've uploaded your book cover and your manuscript, you're going to come down here and click on the launch previewer button, and here your book will pop up. And I want to note, this is just an example book I created in like 2 seconds. It's ugly, I know. All right, so now you're going to approve your book, and back down here it's going to give you a summary. This just comes down to whatever the parameters are that you selected, as well as your page count. This is a small book, so that would put our printing cost at $2.15. I do also want to note, KDP actually has this printing cost and royalty calculator. So if you don't want to go through the whole hassle of this to figure out your pricing, and you want to figure out before you upload your book, even before you create it, you can come here and figure out what your estimated royalty would be. So for example, here, book type paperback, black and white tier with white paper, page count, say it's 120, marketplace Amazon, list price, let's say I go with $6.99. Calculate that. So for a book like this list price, the printing will cost $2.29. The estimated royalty for each book that sells would be $1.90. And to quickly break it down, your minimum list price, this right here, this is the lowest we could price our book at. See, if I chose to list it at that price, that would put our estimated royalty at a whopping 0. So don't ever do that unless you're trying to get it for like a really cheap price and then up it later. Anyway, I'll put it back at $6.99. And then here again is how much printing is, and then our estimated royalty. These are two of the largest factors. So list price minus the printing price minus Amazon's cut for royalty, which we can't see here, brings us to our estimated royalty, which is $1.90. And as you'll see here, the royalty rate is 60%, meaning this is how much we'd be getting while Amazon would be getting 60%. So technically our royalty rate would be 40%, Amazon 60. So Amazon is definitely getting a larger cut, but you got to remember that they're printing and fulfilling all the orders. You're just creating them and publishing them off into the void. So given Amazon's doing all the work, I see this as a fair royalty rate. It would be lovely to have more money, but it's nothing I can complain about. I'll be talking about some different strategies soon, but first I want to make note. So I have chosen this list price for this random book of mine at $5.99. This would put my royalty at $1.44. And popping down, you'll see we've got all of these different currencies that this list price has been converted to for all the different Amazon marketplaces. And here is the royalty that I would get in all these different currencies. And one thing I want to note is that you don't need to change any of these, but there are two that I almost always change, and that is Japan and Australia, because Japan and Australia, they look a lot lower. I'll be honest, I don't really know what the conversion rate is, at least for Australia. I know Japan, about 100 yen is $1. So this here is less than $1. And if someone buys my book in Japan, I want it to be a little more. So I'll usually bring that up by 100 yen. Australia, I'll bring that up another $1 as well. And there we go. Now I'm making a decent amount of money in both of these marketplaces if someone chooses to buy my book from here. So basically, again, you can ignore all the other marketplaces for the most part, but take a peek at Japan and Australia and make sure that you're not getting shortchanged for your book. And that is how you set your price on Amazon. Then you can come down here and publish it, and then it'll go live in a little bit if there are no issues with the price that you have selected. I do also want to note, I was looking at KDP's frequently asked questions, and this one I thought was really interesting. Why is my book's price different than the list price I set in my KDP account? So there is a possibility that you'll list your book and you will see it at a different price. And fun fact, Amazon, sometimes they may change the price of your book, typically discounting it every now and then. I've never heard of the price actually being different recommend besides getting an Amazon discount, but I have heard, to my knowledge, that Amazon will still give you the same royalty regardless of whether or not your book is discounted. So basically, if Amazon decides to run a discount on your book, then you are benefiting more than Amazon is. And make sure that you give it some time, up to 72 hours to update if you choose to change it. Sometimes things can take a while on Amazon's end, so don't be waiting up on it. It'll get itself fixed eventually. Okay, so now how do you choose the price for your book? It's easy to stick some numbers in, but those numbers can be the defining factor of whether your book makes sales or whether it doesn't. So don't just go throwing them in there willy-nilly. You're going to want to do some research first within the niche that you've chosen for the book that you've created. This will involve a little niche research. Head on over to Amazon, and if you really want to go in depth, make sure to grab KDP Spy. That is through BookBolt, and if you don't already have BookBolt, make sure to go down and click the link in the description. Get started with 20% off your first month using my coupon code Sarah20. Now let's get into how to do your niche research for the pricing for your book. All right, so to conduct your niche research, begin by typing in whatever niche you're wanting to go for. I typed in fitness logbook as an example, and you'll notice most likely that after whatever you type in, a lot of the listings you get will be ones that are not published through KDP. And you can tell because look at these spirals that they have. You can't do that through KDP, and there are a ton, like pretty much all of these are not through KDP. So you got to remember that we're not really competing against these ones, because after all, we can't really sell a $20 fitness journal if it doesn't have a spiral and quite the fanciness that this one has. So we're going to stick with our true competition, and to do that, come over here to choose the books department, and then that'll bring you only KDP books. You'll see here it says paperback. Some of them might say hardcover. However, for the most part, these are paperback books. So just looking at the first few in the beginning, we've got some $4.99, $5.95, $8.95, $6.99, bunch of $6.99, another $6.99, $5.99. $6.99 seems to be a general average for these types of books, which would put our royalty around $150-ish. Granted, it would entirely depend on the page count and other factors that you choose, but just keep that in mind. And if you wanted to do an even deeper search into this niche, hop on over here to KDP Spy. Also, I want to note KDP Spy is owned by BookBolt. You will need a BookBolt subscription in order to access KDP Spy. However, I love BookBolt. I'd say BookBolt is the most affordable and one of the most incredible in-depth KDP tools out there. It does a little bit of everything, and everything that it does pretty well, especially KDP Spy. Even just KDP Spy alone makes this an incredible deal. And if you want to go get started, make sure to hop down and click the link in the description. Use my coupon code Sarah20 to get 20% off your first month of BookBolt. And I use BookBolt all the time, would highly recommend. Just want to throw that out there. Anyway, here we are, KDP Spy. I usually use it for keywords. However, we're going to stick in search and click on the start button, and it will start pulling up the data of all of these books here. Here is the number of products that are being pulled up at this moment as it's going through the pages, and it's populating all this data. It's got a bunch of averages that it's working out. I think I'm going to stop at around page 5. All right, here it's gotten to page 5, and then I'll wait. All right, page 5, maybe a little bit of 6. So here are our averages. Average number of sales for this niche, 2.2. Average number of reviews, 1. Average BSR, feel free to figure out that number. And then average price, we've got $5.49. Keep in mind, this is across the first 5 pages. It's averaged everything out. And around here is a good price to list your book. I wouldn't go any lower than $5.49. I'd probably sit closer to 6. But basically, BookBolt, the KDP Spy, this is just an excellent way to figure out all of this data from this niche without having to analyze it all yourself. KDP Spy does it all for you. Granted, you can just look at the first few listings. This is a great way to break it down across many different listings across many different pages. The first thing to keep in mind is that you want to price your book competitively. I'm not saying be the cheapest book out there. You almost always don't want to be the cheapest book out there, but you're going to want to keep your prices competitive. You're going to want to keep them similar to the prices that are already out there. You got to keep in mind, if your book is dirt cheap, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get more sales. sales. There are some markets where you do want to be the cheapest one out there, but when it comes to Amazon and when it comes to KDP, when it comes to creating books, cheap is not always the way to go. Sometimes, more often than not, people are going to be choosing a book that they like rather than the one that is the cheapest. I mean, sure, if their choices are a $20 book or a $10 book, the price may be a larger determining factor. However, if they're between two books and the only price difference is around $2 or $3 and they like the expensive one more, if they like the design, if they like what it offers, then they are more likely to go with that one because that one will make them happier and will satisfy their needs a little bit better. And in fact, if you choose a price that makes your book a little more expensive, that can be a strategy in and of itself. And that brings us to our second strategy, which is pricing your books so they are more expensive. This may seem counterintuitive, but there is a little bit of a psychological meaning behind it. When people are looking at a book that is $3 versus one that is $15, psychologically speaking, they're going to view that $15 book as having a higher value. So even if there's a little difference between the two, perhaps the difference purely comes down to design, there's a possibility that they will go with that one because the higher price will make them think that they are getting more out of it. So this is another reason why you probably don't want to go the dirt cheap route, because some people may see a $4 book and they'll think it's of lower quality, less value than the more expensive options that are out there. And the third strategy, this is one I have been wanting to try. However, I might not just because it does require a more hands-on approach. Basically, when publishing your book, consider going with a lower price first. Let's say maybe you wanted to publish it at $6.99, instead you're doing $5.99. That's not a bad thing. Just so that your book is priced a little more competitively, a bit cheaper, possibly more likely to get sales. And then once you got a few sales rolling in, this will get your BSR on the board, and this will get your listing ranking higher. And then after that point, head back in your KDP dashboard, go over to that listing, and then change the price so it's $1 or $2 higher. It'll still have the same BSR, the ranking will still be the same, like assuming it's staying consistently, that is. But your book will have that higher price, so it's got that competitive edge by being at the top of the rankings, and it's also got the higher price that helps it be perceived as of more value. This is a very popular strategy and it's definitely one that works well, but again, it does require a more hands-on approach. You'll need to be watching your books. You won't want to keep them at that low price. You're going to want to change it down the road. So you have to do a little bit more watching and a little more analyzing, but it could really be worth it in the end. So those are the three main strategies. Those are the ones that I think work best and are the best to consider. Now let me quickly share what I do. For me, I usually try to make sure that for all of my books, I'm making at least $1 or $2 in royalties, because otherwise it doesn't really feel worth it to even publish the book. I want to make sure I'm making at least $1. If it's just a couple cents, it doesn't feel as worth it to me. I try to aim for $1.50, but at least $1 is good. And of course, I'll do some niche research. I'll look around at the market, see what the average price is, what the prices are for the most popular books in that niche, and then I may go with something around there. Sometimes I'll price it a little higher just because I feel confident about the design of my books. And sometimes I'll do totally random prices. I try to make sure that they land on an odd number rather than an even number. I feel like I heard that somewhere and I've just kind of gone with it. It's possible though that there's no actual research behind it. I just kind of do it because I got into the habit of it and I like it. So I'll do things like $7.69, $5.43, usually not quite that low, but you get the gist. And then of course I always make sure to change Japan and Australia so that the prices are bumped up by an Australian dollar, by 100 yen, so that I'm compensated a little bit more fairly for those marketplaces. That's about it. I honestly just try and keep it simple. I try not to overcomplicate things. I would love to go with this strategy of pricing my books lower and then pricing them higher in the future, but I have a lot of books out there and it would be kind of hard to have that hands-on approach with them. So I avoid that. I might try doing it though with possibly more high content books. I feel like that would be worthwhile, and it is also worth noting that again, higher content books, like let's say novels and activity books and coloring books and things, have a different sort of advantage. I mean, with a novel, you can kind of just price it the same as other novels. You know, those can be $10, $15. And activity books and whatnot, if you're offering something that's different than other activity books are, then you can also price yourself higher. I've heard that activity books can make you more money because they're typically priced higher, but I've done some research and seen that some of them aren't quite priced as high. Like you'll still find some that are the same price as, for example, the fitness log book, despite being higher content. Just keep that in mind. To sum up, do some niche research. Don't try to be dirt cheap. Feel free to raise your prices later if you feel the need. If you've already made some sales and want to make even more sales or, you know, even more money, then that's totally an option to do. But in the end, don't overthink it because you can change it at any point if it's not working for you. You can make it lower, you can make it higher. Either one could bring you more sales. So just play around with it, find a strategy that works for you. And I hope that this video has helped you with that. If you liked it, please give it a big big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content just like this. I would super duper appreciate it, and I would love to have you. All right, guys, I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day. Bye.